So to my first speaker. So twice winner of the Reinsurance Personality of the Year, Jason is a retired actuary who has worked as a reinsurer, advisor, broker to over 50 insurance companies in the UK and globally. Please welcome to the stage, Jason Hurley.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you to my friends who've helped with this presentation, especially Hannah from SCORE. So, question one, who can do this? Well, the simple answer is anybody. I cannot think of one single valid reason why any insurance company that's so motivated cannot offer improvements to its current customers without increasing premiums, changing policy conditions, or anything else like more underwriting. Question two, why would you not do this? Well, in my mind, it's quite simple. We had a deal. You agreed to pay a fixed premium for a fixed length of time. We agreed to pay a fixed sum assured under a fixed set of policy conditions and a pre-agreed set of underwriting criteria. You can leave whenever you like, unlike your broadband contract, without penalty at any time. If you don't like it, you can complain. If you still don't like it, you can go to the Ombudsman. You don't get a free upgrade every 2 years with an iPhone or a BMW, so why do you expect to get one here? Unfortunately, most companies tend not to communicate like Ryanair. It's debatable as to whether they should or not, but maybe what we should do here is sort of dig a bit underneath the skin here and see what's going on. Now, I don't want to state the bleeding obvious, okay, but guarantees cost money, and somebody somewhere has to pay for it. You mentioned the word guarantee to most actuaries. They will turn white and look at you like you've just shot their pet rabbit. Okay, this was not missed by Darren Lee. Darren was the chief underwriter of RGA in 2002, when this practice was common in the Irish market. I remember him saying to me stuff along the lines of, mental, innit, mate, mental, them Irish. How do they know what's going to happen in the next 15 years, eh? And let's face it, he's right. Or as Graham Watson would say, don't be sentenced by your sentences. Jason, if you can think of a good reason to do this, I would be more than willing to support you. But the way I see it, the benefit is minimal, with a significant chance of it biting our arse at a later date. Well, I've got a good idea. Let's get the reinsurer to pay for it. Well, you can try. There is nothing stopping the insurance company from renegotiating the terms with the reinsurer. There's nothing stopping the insurance company from leaving the reinsurer or threatening to leave the reinsurer or running without reinsurance. There is also nothing stopping the insurance company from making ex gratia payments to their customers. Or in other words, you can try and get the reinsurers to pay for it, but if they won't, there's nothing stopping them paying for it themselves. A couple of things as well are probably worth mentioning in terms of, well, the subject of reinsurance. Number one, the more complex and the more unusual the risk, the more you're going to pay for the reinsurance, either directly or via a less competitive tender process. And also, it may come as a surprise to some people, but the reinsurers aren't exactly making a boatload of money out of this business themselves. Oh, we're not making any money. Those of you that were here a few years ago may remember me presenting this slide and this slide, where I did seriously question how much money, if any, insurance companies were making. But I think, let's face it, to sort of say, well, we can't really treat you very well because we're not making any money, sounds a bit pathetic, sounds a bit weak. And I think to be honest, the only excuse, which is even more pathetic, is it's too complicated for us to administer. So intergenerational inequality, this is interesting. So the first thing you need to realize here is that the in-force premium is significantly higher than a new business. So suppose you've got 100 million of in-force and 20 million of new business, and something comes along that increases the cost by 5%. So what are you going to do? Well, you can try and get the reinsurer to pay for it, but trust me, they're not registered charities, and they're going to want to get their 5 million back somewhere. You could write to these customers and offer to give it to them if they pay an extra 5% on the premium. The problem with that is it's complicated, it's difficult, it's going to wind people up, and actuaries and underwriters are going to get worried about anti-selection, and probably most people won't pay it anyway. You could not bother with the product upgrade full stop, and ends up with your product slowly becoming weaker and weaker compared to the rest of the market, or you could try and get the new business to pay for it. The problem there is my new business premiums are going to go up from 20 to 25, so these people over here are going to be paying 25% more, so subsidise 5% over there. The other thing you could do is suck it and see, on the grounds that these people over here have been customers for years and years and years. We've made money out of them for many, many years. We want to encourage customer loyalty. We want to improve persistency. We want to build a customer base, and maybe we can sell them something else at a later date. Okay, quiz time. According to the most reliable source of actuarial pricing data available on the market, i.e. RGA's top trumps cards, what percentage of claims come from cancer, heart attack, and stroke? Okay, it's over 80%. I appreciate these cards are out of date. I appreciate it depends on age, sex, policy term, blah, 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 blah. So let's keep the math simple, okay? Let's assume that the 3 illness policy here has 80% of the claims of my mega, super fat, 50 illness, critical illness policy. So if somebody's paying 50 quid a month here, how much are they going to pay here? Well, the obvious answer is 80% of 50, Jason, £40 a month. The answer is, well, not quite. It's going to be a little bit more than that, okay? And the reason for it is people claiming today here, some of them will end up claiming at a later date. So RGA, for example, are paying out on cabbage, they're paying out on heart valve replacement. Some of those people, health will deteriorate over the next few years, so they will end up potentially having cancer, heart attack, stroke, especially the cardiovascular risks at a later date. Yes, some of them, the policy will have lapsed. Yes, they will have paid extra premiums. Yes, the policy term may have expired, but nevertheless, a small cost. And if anybody says to me, if you're going to pay these claims anyway, why don't you just bloody well pay them now? I think you've got a fair point. Now, I'm going to argue that we've got the same thing here if we have an upgrade on the current critical illness cover, okay? So on the face of it, you can say that this is much more valuable, but for some people, they will end up getting the claim paid, I say, admittedly, a few years down the line. Now, another reason why this gap may be less than you think is if you end up paying more claims here than you expect. Okay, so this is what I used to call the watchdog risk. Call it maybe now the Twitter risk, the reputational risk. You can see the story yourselves. 2 twin sisters, her claim got paid and hers didn't. The ombudsman attitude and other stuff, whether you call it treating customers fairly, consumer duty, or some regulatory review that apparently is going on that I don't really know much about, to be honest with you. So the next question then, in terms of cost, is around rebroking. In the beginning of 2003, the price of critical illness reinsurance shot up by about 40% on 25-year term policies. So the price shot up, and then for the next decade or so, it was drifting down slowly. So during that 10-year period, it was relatively easy for an insurance company to retender the reinsurance and get a better price and or more illnesses covered. They could pass that on to a better product to their customer. And I don't have the data, and I may be wrong, but I suspect there was a reasonable amount of rebroking going on, which, by the way, I don't have a problem with. Okay, the job of the advisor is to advise, and if they can tell me I've got a better product that's not to my detriment, that's their job. So the argument would then be that if we give these enhancements, there is less rebroking. Some may disagree, but I think, to be honest with you, it's reasonably marginal. I actually think the bigger impact may well be the impact on the customer. I've read the letter that Guardian send their customers, which is actually a very, very well-written letter. I don't know how many people read it. I don't know how many people understand it, but it certainly would give you a warm feeling of a company that actually cares about you and looks after you. In the summer, I was having a beer with an ex-colleague of mine, just retired as a chief pricing actuary. And I said to him, so are you missing work then, Chris? And he said to me, and this is true, unprompted, and I'm not exaggerating, he said, the one thing I tell you I definitely don't miss are those meetings with the insurance companies where they say, I want something which is genuinely value-adding, something which is really going to benefit the customer, something which is unique and different, but I'm not going to pay for it. Okay? Generally speaking, the next line from my friend is, so thanks for the coffee and can you book me a taxi to the station, okay? There was a second friend of mine, and we were having a bit of an email exchange about this, and he said, I don't believe that any insurance company would offer something if they genuinely didn't believe there'd be a claim. Fair enough. To which I replied, how about convincing a reinsurer that it doesn't cost anything and then promoting it as a marketing benefit? Strangely, he didn't reply to that one, so I'll leave that one up in the air. There was a third friend of mine who got in another email exchange about this, and he started by saying, well, Jason, there are very few enhancements that genuinely add no value to the customer. However, there are some that I do admit are fairly minimal. Then within about a minute, we'd come up with this list here. Now, I appreciate this happens in many, many industries. We could probably think of hundreds of examples of shady marketing practices between us. And I can't remember what I was going to say. And so, yeah, I take your point there. I also take the point of anybody who says, you don't do that. We don't do that anymore, Jason. You don't understand. You've retired now. You've been retired for a year and 11 months, and the industry is definitely much tidier now than it was before. You don't get it. Those product comparison companies, they really keep us on our toes. To which I say good. Good for two reasons. One, that they are actually doing something to actually try and monitor the industry. And secondly, nanny, I told you so. At an event like this in 2008, I had a slide of my young daughter and suggested that I wanted her to marry a rich, powerful man, the one-eyed creature that ruled the earth. And I suggested that was Nick Telfer. Nick Telfer, I hear you say? Are you serious? Well, at the time, Nick was working for De Facto. And I could see the way the wind was blowing. I could see the way the industry was moving. I could see more complicated products. I could see people moving away from ABI definitions. I could see the confusion this was causing for IFAs. In some cases, I would say deliberately. I could see that IFAs wanted to do the right thing. I could see there was compliance and ombudsman risk building up, and they would value this comparison service, and also that insurance companies would, let's say, have to take these people more seriously. Go on then, Jason. Who's going to be the one-eyed man in 15 years? I'm going to say no-win, no-fee lawyers. I mentioned about the Australian experience earlier on. The more that products become complicated, the more people will have the claim event happen to them and they will not claim. The bigger the IBNR will build up, the bigger the gone-away risk will build up, and the bigger the problem if the chickens ever come home to roost. Now, Mark mentioned earlier on about some groundbreaking McKinsey report. 30 years ago, I was involved in a groundbreaking McKinsey project. We were going to sell pensions over the internet, okay? We were going to sell millions of pensions over the internet. This was big, this was disruptive, this was going to change the world. And on our team, we had two guys from Sun Life Direct Marketing, the people that sell over 50 plans. They had going back about 20 years worth of data looking at the effectiveness of advertising. Do you spend 20 grand on a full page or 15 on a half page? Which day of the week? Which newspaper? Which free gift? Judith Chalmers or Michael Parkinson, okay? These days, there would be a cloud-based AI-enabled actuarial predictive analytics system. In those days, it was two blokes that knew their stuff, okay? Their rule of thumb was it cost 5 times as much to sell to a new customer as to an existing one. Which does beg the question, how much does it sell to a customer who's completely, utterly, and totally hacked off with you? As Joe said, it is bloody annoying. New customers only, 1 month's free trial, give us your credit card number and hope you forget to cancel, blah, 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 blah. I don't need to say any more. I think it's pretty sort of obvious to anybody. I've got one more question for you, which is, supposing you had to run a burger joint next door to McDonald's, how would you compete with that? Well, I would suggest that competing by price is not very smart, okay? You probably compete by product and by service, which is fine in theory for this industry. There's a few problems, though, and a few differences between burgers and what we sell. The first difference is with a burger, you can pick it up, you can see it, you can bite it, you can taste it, you can smell it. You can look in my restaurant how clean and wonderful the service is. Our product is, if you get sick, we'll look after you, or if you die, your wife will be okay. Okay? It's intangible. Okay? The second difference with our industry is if my burger is rubbish, you will probably do the British thing where you say, thank you very much, that was very nice, and never come back again. Okay? With our products, you don't realize they're going to fail until it's too late. You can't do anything about it. And the third problem is back to our old friend compliance, okay? In my wine bar, where I'm selling you a glass of Pinot Grigio for 12 quid with my warm and friendly service and my charm and wit and sort of personality, I don't have to tell you it's £2.90 in the Wetherspoons next door. Forgive me, may I just take 1 more minute? I was unsure how to sort of finish this presentation. And then last night, I was watching the football, and when PSV scored their third goal, I thought I had the bright idea that I would put the very first question here into ChatGPT. So I asked ChatGPT, Gemini, and Claude whether an insurance company that gives enhancements to new customers should also give them to existing customers. Gemini basically completely contradicted itself. It said, yes, you should do it, because of loyalty and improved persistency and the increasing sort of cross-sells. And then it said, oh, no, you shouldn't do it because of what I said about the Ryanair thing earlier on, in that the premium's fixed and it's unfair to actually deviate from that if you're going to jeopardize other customers. Claude actually changed its answer overnight. Last night it gave a pretty good answer for a general insurance company. This morning it was remarkably similar to the answer for GPT. Essentially, I've got some notes, I could give you the details, but essentially it said sort of similar things than I said, but obviously without as much detail, wit, charm, personality, and they didn't mention Nick Telfer, which is quite amazing. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.